What happens to a woman when every door closes? When her past chases her farther than any train can run? That was the question, sitting heavy in Eliza's chest, as the train screeched to a stop in Redemption, Arizona territory. For 3 long days, nothing existed except the clatter of steel wheels and the dusty blur outside the window. Now the world stood still. The train hissed a last breath of steam, as if relieved to be rid of her. Eliza stepped down onto the platform holding a small, worn case. The heat wrapped around her like punishment. Her gray dress clung to her back, and dust coated her shoes before she took 3 steps. The town before her looked tired and forgotten. One street, a few faded buildings, and a silence that made her bones ache. She scanned the station, heart pounding. She wasn't just arriving somewhere new, she was arriving to someone, at least she had hoped. She reached into her bodice and touched the letter she'd folded and unfolded until the paper nearly tore. Silas Croft. A widower, with land and need of a wife. His words were plain and gentle, everything she thought safety might sound like, but no one stepped forward. 1 hour passed, then another. The station agent swept the boards, glancing at her now and then like she was something left behind by a careless traveler. The sun climbed higher, her hope sank lower. Women leaving the general store slowed when they saw her. They tilted their bonnets together, whispering behind gloved hands. Her simple travel dress, her uncovered hair, her being alone, all of it said things she did not speak. A familiar cold feeling crept into her stomach. Judgment. Shame. The same coldness she had known back in Ohio. Finally, a tall, thin woman in a severe black dress stepped toward her. Her back was straight as a church steeple. "You are the one who arrived on the noon train," she said. Her tone was not welcoming. "Yes, ma'am." Eliza forced a small smile. "I am waiting for Mr. Silas Croft. He should have met me." The woman's lips tightened. "There is no Mr. Croft in Redemption." The sentence dropped like a stone. Eliza's throat burned. "But his letter," he said. "Men lie," the woman replied coldly, "and foolish girls believe them." Eliza swallowed hard. I have nowhere else to go." "There is always somewhere respectable to stay," the woman snapped. "But a woman who travels alone to meet a man she has never seen should not expect gentleness from the world." The words struck harder than heat or dust. "My name is Mrs. Gable. My husband is the Reverend. If you wish, we may offer temporary shelter." Hope flickered, then dimmed as the woman turned, not toward the parsonage, but toward a small stable behind the church. Inside smelled of horses and hay. A single stall held clean straw. "You may sleep here," Mrs. Gable said. "It is more than your choices deserve, but God commands charity. Good night." The door shut. Darkness swallowed Eliza. She did not cry. Tears were wasted long ago. She sank into the hay, cold settling into her bones. Her stomach ached from hunger. Her last coin would not buy a room nor a meal. The West felt bigger than she imagined. Bigger and far lonelier. Morning light woke her. She washed her face with cold water from the trough and braided her hair. She needed work, any work. But every door closed. The innkeeper laughed her away. The general store owner turned nervous and apologetic. Women crossed the street to avoid her. Whispers followed her everywhere. Then, as she stepped out of the general store after another refusal, the door opened again behind her. A man stepped out. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his clothes dusty from ranch work. His hat shaded a weathered face carved by sun and time. His eyes, pale blue and unreadable, landed on her for just a moment. She stepped aside, ready to be ignored again. But he paused. "I heard you're looking for work," he said, voice rough and deep. Eliza froze. She nodded carefully. "Yes." He didn't speak right away. His jaw clenched once, like he was thinking too hard about something simple. "Got work on my ranch," he finally said. "Hard work, cooking, cleaning, chickens, a cot to sleep on, $1 a week, nothing more. No flirtation, no false charm, just truth. Eliza searched his face and found nothing but stillness, like a man who had no time for pretending. "Yes," she whispered, "I accept." He nodded once. "Name's Luke." He turned and walked toward a waiting wagon. Eliza lifted her case and followed him, feeling the eyes of the town on her back. She didn't look back, not at the station, not at the stable where she slept, not at the life that had ended the moment she stepped off the train. The wagon rolled forward. Dust rose around them. She didn't know it yet, not then when her heart was small and scared, that this man, this stranger who barely spoke, would change everything. The first nights at the ranch were quiet, in a way that made Eliza feel smaller than she ever had. Silence wasn't peaceful here. It was heavy, like something that watched her. She fell into routine because routine was safer than thinking. She woke before sunrise, lit the cook stove, boiled coffee and made biscuits. She scrubbed floors, mended shirts, fed chickens, and stirred pots of beans while dust floated in beams of sunlight across the bunkhouse. Luke barely spoke. He ate in silence, nodded when she set food down, and walked back out into the work that shaped his life. His two ranch hands, Abe and Charlie, weren't rude, only distant, like men unsure whether she was temporary or trouble. No one asked her story. No one asked her anything. And somehow that was a relief. But the quiet didn't erase what she'd carried with her. Some nights, when the darkness grew thick and the cold crept through the walls, old memories rose up like ghosts. Her husband's voice telling her a woman's body was sin, his judgment disguised as devotion. She would shake the thoughts away and force sleep to come. It was the kind of loneliness that hollowed a person. Then something changed. It happened on a branding day, when the sun was a blazing white coin in the sky and the air smelled of dust and cattle. Sweat gathered on the men's backs, and when Luke lifted a bucket of water to pour over his head, Eliza's breath caught. His shirt was gone, and his back, his strong, scarred back, looked like a story carved into skin. Long, white, healed wounds. Some thin like lashes, some jagged and deep. She had seen wounds on souls before, but never on a body like his. Pain recognized pain. For the first time, she wondered what weight he carried in silence. Later, she washed dishes inside the bunkhouse when a sound broke through her thoughts, a low, strangled cry coming from the barn. A nightmare. She stepped toward the open door and froze in the shadows. Luke lay on a bedroll, drenched in sweat, whispering a name she didn't know. Anna. Then, just as painful. Liar. Eliza stepped back into the darkness before he woke. She did not sleep that night. The next morning passed quietly, but neither felt the same. Shame lived in silence, but something else had moved between them. Recognition. And it was growing. 2 days later, while frying pork belly for supper, her hand slipped. The skillet burned her sharply, sending panic through her body. She gasped. Luke was at the doorway in seconds. What happened? It's nothing. He ignored her words and stepped closer. He took her wrist gently yet firmly. Let me see. Quote, she didn't want him to, not because it hurt, but because kindness was harder to bear than cruelty. His thumb brushed her palm as he lifted her burned hand. His touch wasn't claiming or hungry. It was careful. Tender. He wrapped a cool cloth around the burn with slow, steady movements. The room felt smaller. The air thicker. Their eyes met, just for a breath, and something unspoken passed between them. Not desire alone, not fear alone. Recognition again. He released her and stepped back, clearing his throat. Be careful, he murmured, then left. Her heart didn't stop racing for a long time. The storm came suddenly that afternoon. Thunder cracking open the sky, rain crashing down like the earth was being washed clean. The horses panicked, mud churned. Luke and the ranch hands fought to bring every animal into shelter. Eliza didn't think, she acted. Barefoot, soaked, hair undone, she waded through rain and mud, helping guide the frightened animals to safety. Luke looked at her once, only once, but in that glance she saw something shift. Respect. When the storm passed, the world glowed gold with evening light, everything trembling and alive. Later, as dusk deepened, Eliza found Luke's soaked shirt draped over a fence rail. Mud streaked across it. Without thinking, she took it to the pump and began to wash it. Water splashed her already damp blouse until it clung cold and uncomfortable against her skin. The night breeze chilled her. She looked around. No one. So she unbuttoned the blouse and slipped it off, leaving only her thin chemise. Her heart raced at the boldness, but she hung the wet blouse beside his shirt and went back to scrubbing. She didn't hear him approach. Only when she felt it, being watched, did she turn. Luke stood a few steps away. No anger, no disgust, no judgment, only raw, honest stillness. Her breath caught. She clutched his wet shirt to her chest like a shield. He stepped closer, but stopped a respectful distance away. The night air seemed to tremble. His voice was low, deep, rough, like a truth he'd never spoken aloud. Leave it off. The words struck like lightning. Eliza's throat tightened. Her past screamed warnings, sinful, wicked, shameful, but nothing in his eyes matched those words. He wasn't commanding her. He was asking, inviting, promising. His voice softened but grew even lower, warm and dangerous and gentle all at once. "I'll teach you heat." Her breath shuddered. Her body trembled. Not in fear, but in something she had never been allowed to feel. Desire. Longing. Choice. She nodded. Just barely. Luke didn't move toward her or reach for her. He simply turned and walked toward the bunkhouse door, leaving it open behind him. A silent invitation. A question. A beginning. Eliza let his shirt fall from her hands. Then she followed. "Wait, before we move on, what do you think about the story so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to know." The night she followed him inside did not feel like sin. It felt like crossing a threshold she had been denied her whole life. The glow from the small stove cast flickering orange light across the room. Luke stood beside it, his back to her, as if giving her time to change her mind. The silence between them was no longer cold or distant. It was warm, waiting. Eliza's pulse thudded in her throat. Her hands trembled, but her steps were steady as she walked closer. She didn't hide her chemise. She didn't apologize for being seen. Luke finally turned. His pale blue eyes met hers, and the world seemed to still. He lifted a hand slowly, carefully, like approaching a skittish animal. His fingers brushed her shoulder, just the barest touch, but it sent a soft trembling through her body. His touch wasn't demanding, he wasn't claiming her. He was asking if she trusted him. And she did. For the first time in her life, she trusted a man. She gave a small nod. Then everything changed. Luke leaned down and kissed her. Not hard, not hungry, just enough to teach her what a gentle first kiss felt like. His lips were warm, patient. His hands framed her face like she was something fragile but worth holding. Heat bloomed, slow and deep, not something taken, but something discovered. That night wasn't rushed or careless. It wasn't whispered scripture or punishment disguised as duty. It wasn't shame. It was healing. When they finally slept, her head rested on his chest, her hand over his heart. For the first time in years, her sleep was dreamless and soft. Life after that night did not turn instantly sweet or easy. The world outside still judged. Whispers still followed her through town. But she was no longer hollow or alone. She and Luke worked side by side. Quietly. Steadily. Whispers grew louder when she rode into town with him beside her. Some people scowled. Others turned away. But a few. People who lived on the edges of town and goodness watched her with something close to respect. Luke never reacted to gossip, but she noticed the tension in his jaw, the way his shoulders stiffened when certain men spoke too loudly near them. One day, after they'd finished collecting supplies, a rancher named Caldwell blocked their path. "That woman," he sneered, nodding toward Eliza, "shamed the church back east and now stains this territory. A man who keeps a woman like that ain't fit for business." Luke said nothing, but he put his hand at the small of her back, protective, steady, and guided her past. That touch meant everything. The pressure finally broke on a moonless night when fire lit up the sky. Someone set the ranch's haystack ablaze. The glow burned against the darkness like a violent sunrise, lighting the corral and barn. Horses cried out, panicking, hooves thrashing mud. Luke and the ranch hands ran toward the fire. Eliza followed, heart pounding. There was no time for fear. She soaked blankets and beat at the flames beside Luke, smoke clawing her throat, sparks burning her dress. Sweat and soot streaked their faces. Their hands bled, their lungs burned, but together they saved the barn. When the fire finally died, leaving a smoldering black ruin where their winter feed once stood, Eliza collapsed into Luke's arms, both of them shaking, not from fear anymore, but from the fight. Luke touched her face gently. "Eliza," he whispered, voice rough with exhaustion and something deeper. "I thought I'd lost this whole ranch tonight, but losing you..." His voice broke. "That would have been worse." Quote, she didn't speak, she just leaned in and kissed him with the certainty of someone who had finally found her place in the world. Life did not pause for heartbreak or fire. Winter pressed closer. Supplies ran low, money ran lower. So Eliza did something no one expected. She baked. Bread, pies, dried herbs, whatever she could make with the little they had. Then she took them to market. At first, every customer passed without a glance, until one widow stopped. Then a lonely mixed heritage girl. Then a fearful wife who wanted to learn to read. One person at a time, the outcasts found her. Soon, she wasn't just selling bread. She was teaching women to read, to sign their names, to speak their stories. Slowly, quietly, the town changed. Luke watched from the edges, proud, protective, silent, because words weren't his trade. Loyalty was. When the preacher from her past, Reverend Albright, arrived in redemption and tried to drag her back to the life she'd fled, Luke stepped forward first, until Eliza stepped in front of him. She faced the crowd and told the truth, not with anger, but with strength. She told them how her husband had used scripture to control her, how her voice had been taken, how fear had become her world. She ended with 4 quiet words, "I choose my life." The judge dismissed the accusations. The preacher left town, and the people who once whispered began nodding when she walked by. Months later, with winter behind them and spring softening the land, Luke found her feeding the chickens. His hands were calloused, his shirt patched, his face weathered, but his eyes were steady and sure. "I'm not asking you to belong to me," he said. "I'm asking to stand beside you, as your partner, equal, not keeper, not salvation, just a man who loves you." Eliza didn't answer with words. She stepped into his arms and kissed him, slow and certain. That evening, under lantern light and laughter during a barn-raising celebration, Luke offered his hand. "Dance with me?" "I don't know how," she whispered. "Neither do I." Quote, they learned together, awkward, smiling, stepping on each other's boots until laughter shook them both, and for the first time, Eliza laughed without fear. Later, beneath a sky full of endless stars, they lay together wrapped in a blanket. The desert wind hummed low, gentle now, not a warning, but a song. Eliza rested her head on his chest. "Luke," she whispered, That night, when you said you'd teach me heat." He brushed a finger along her cheek. "I remember." She smiled softly. "You did, but you taught me something more." He waited. "You taught me home." Lou kissed her, slow, tender, reverent, and in the quiet of the desert night, with the land stretching wild around them, they became something more than two broken souls surviving. They became a story, a fire, a love that no rumor, no preacher, no past could extinguish. A love finally chosen. A love finally free.